So, hello everyone, welcome to Busy Conversations as a part of a series on sustainability talks. We have today a guest, Ms. Pallavi Pasupuleti, and she's a young green entrepreneur. She's actually listed on the magazine of Business World Post as the most promising young woman entrepreneur, and also India Post has recognized her as the upcoming woman pioneer entrepreneur in India among the top 10. And she is rightly currently, as of now, an executive director of Tripura Constructions. Namaste, Pallavi garu. Welcome.
Namaste. Thank you.
Thank you for accepting the invitation for this particular interaction.
Thank you so much for having me on board. I'm very happy to be here on this discussion. My very favorite topic, sustainability and greener cities.
Great. The most important feedback we have received from our the earlier participants and also the target audience, they said that they would like to hear from young entrepreneurs, and we are very happy to have you as upcoming business leader and also budding entrepreneur. And it would be great for the next half hour so we would be exploring the topic of future of living in cities. But before going into venturing into that exploration, I would like to welcome you to give some remarks as what is your open understanding of the current situation of living in the cities, and also having looked at the past also. Just you can start with the open conversation, then we will slowly dive deep on the future of living in cities.
Sure, Andy. What is very inspiring from the past, like all of us have a lot to learn from the past. The past, the way the architecture was done, the way the communities and the cities were built. We need to definitely learn something from the past. So when you talk of the past, the few cities which comes to my mind is Varanasi, Damascus from Syria, or Palestine. These cities were built literally 5,000 years back, and they are still inhabited. Like we need to analyze and think how is that possible? And today, the current situation, we see our cities even within 1 or 2 generations, we are facing so many problems. Like what was the core behind coming up with this kind of cities? They were all built around nature. I mean, they were in synchronization with nature. That is the key thing that we all have to pick up today. And they were also so sensible that they're so sensible that their sustainable way of building would help all of us even till today, for all the generations we've been occupying them. What's the reason? Because they were dealing with the controllables, that is and they never meddled with the uncontrollables like the nature, and that was very wise on their part. And it is also like today what we are doing, we are digging tunnels through the mountain bases. We are building up rivers on the line of the river. We are building dwellings on the line of the rivers, and because of which we are facing so many floods and landslides, and we tend to blame the nature. Like this is what is happening in Uttaranchal. This is a clear example of the mistakes that we have done. So the one very important thing that we can learn from the past is that they were always in sync with nature, and that is called sustainability that we have to work on from now.
So referring to the examples of the iconic cities in the past, from some you can talk about like Varanasi. It is considered the oldest city as per the Archaeological Survey of India. And recently the UNESCO and other institutions have, unearthed a lot of archaeological, samples and information that the way they have designed is that they're kept for many generations in the plan. Like they have designed this for accommodating large masses moving in and out of the city, and they have kept it relevant to all times. That means nearly at least 5 to 6,000 years ago, they thought of capacity building and architecture, and also mass mobilization, and providing the basic infrastructure, and at the same time meeting their objective, whatever the idea behind building the city, which is another subject if we go into. But they had a core objective. But apart from that, the idea of building living and also transit, which is very important, today's world. Like you see many cities now, like even the city of Hyderabad or many other cities, you see cities surrounded by ring roads, and you have the ring roads, you have bypass, and so on and so forth. So it's many aspects of city we have seen in the modern world. So, but they have imagined, all these things, but at the same time they have built inroads into the city such that people can come into the city and go out very easily. So in that context, having a vision and also planning for a long-term infrastructure and meeting the basic needs is what we can think of a takeaway from the past iconic cities. There is another example, Milan in Italy, which they have completely made in sync with the nature. It is the city is completely in the water, in the ocean, and you can say these are the backwaters of the ocean. Could see, I could myself have visited. So there is a lot to, look at the architecture and the way they have structured the housing, and the also how they have built the communities and basic amenities, and also they have also have trade places were also all built in the same area. So it's very interesting to look at those cities, because all is not messed up in the today's context in the modernization. So how do you see cities around the world today, the current scenario? We have a lot of comfort and conveniences in terms of living. So living in the sense like housing is one of the aspect, but if you consider you know going out for shopping, or or for entertainment, or for transportation, and basic amenities of like walking on the street, accommodating various other necessities like lighting and all, and water pipelines and all, so on and so forth. You can go on. So what is your observation, that you can talk about few examples, different kinds of cities that you visited or aware of, and how they are having challenges as of now?
You're talking about the challenges or the futuristic designs?
No, I'm asking you to give kind of an observation in the current cities. Of course, there is a lot of modern infrastructure built up, but it has its own set of challenges. So you could highlight both
Right.
current cities.
Yeah. So in the present cities, in the present generation, like how we have built cities where normally what happened like earlier during the industrialization stage, we saw all the cities and the communities were built around industries. So later on, when we saw when we saw globalization happening, the everything was around economic development of a place. So the cities were built around these economic hubs. Now, when this was happening, they weren't focusing on the futuristic part. They weren't focusing on the human, the quality of living. When the quality of living was getting compromised, and when the globalization was becoming the core interest of people, and forgetting about the living, what happened? There was a huge wave of urbanization happened. We saw a huge move of population moving from rural India to coming to urban India, and that is when the pressure on the cities kept increasing. When the pressure on the cities kept increasing, the demand for infrastructure was increasing. The demand led to using lots of not so sustainable materials in the constructions. We had to compromise on the quality of the construction. We had to compromise on the materials that is being used, which is not conducive. So, for example, glass as such is not. And with this globalization, we also started copying the lifestyles and interests of the Western cultures. The glass is good for them, but glass in our construction is not good. Glass material is not an eco-friendly material, but we had to do it because of just as a wrong practice, and it was a not suitable one. Glass, we all know that it is it's going to absorb heat and it traps heat. We know it. India is a tropical country and it doesn't suit. But why we going ahead and doing all this? Why is government giving approvals for such kind of a structures? And we know right from it consumes so much energy, right from its installation till the from manufacturing till installation. It consumes so much energy that it is not a needed thing. That's not a right practice. So such mistakes have been happening in architecture. And there was also because of some of these factors like floods. And why do we have floods, especially in cities nowadays? We saw that in recent Hyderabad or Chennai, because the drainage system and sewage system is a failure. They've not been planned well, and there's water clogging happening mainly because of the plastic and the unwanted unwanted trash in the drains. This is leading to a lot of floods in the cities. And if it is not contained, it is not maintained, now we are going to face more of such problems. And there's so much of contamination in the air. Like when you see even before the onset of COVID, many people, the population in Delhi, were walking around with masks because of the poor air quality. And why does this why do we get this air quality problem? Because of the because of the excess of automobiles roaming in the cities, and because of the not so good planning. Somebody working in an office at a point A have to go to office at a point B, and somebody living in point B has to go to point A. So this in transit is creating so much of congestion. And a very good example for this is Bangalore. Bangalore, decades ago, it was a greener city, and now it is one of the most congested and the most contaminated cities. Another major problem which has been happening with the current cities is the waste management. Waste management, the stats is really scary. Like 62 million tons of waste is getting generated in India and annually, and then of which only 45%. I mean, 45% is not treated. Like that means truckloads, thousands and thousands loads of trucks are lying around on the roads, on the roadsides, and this is a very common sight in Bangalore. This has to be treated. We need to take measures in this direction. Like, I really don't understand the government of India. Are we so poor that we can't, invest on this kind of a mechanism? Get advanced countries like Sweden and Finland have the best of the technologies. Why can't we get that and instilled in our system? If these things are taken care, I think the quality of living can go up in the cities, because we already know there's so much of pressure. But how we are going to manage and how we're going to settle this in the near future is something that we have to look on. That's a present scenario. And let's discuss about what the future should be like. See, when we talk about the future of the cities, like we earlier discussed, when the cities were built around industries, when cities were built around economic activities, when every time there's a change in the every time there's a change in the lifestyle, there's a pattern of change. There is there's one change which is driving force for such kind of a change. Now, the change here in the future, and which we've already been seeing in the future, it is going to be that one key factor is the technology. And now again, like the past mistake, we shouldn't build structures, or we shouldn't build communities around the giving importance only to technology, because technology is not going to give an end-to-end solution for all the life that we are going to all the life on earth today. We have to understand that technology is important. We just don't need smart cities. We need smart green cities. For people in the future have to, and we have to start doing this right from now, because if we don't act now, the future is going to be very bad for all of us. The green should be the buzzword. By green development, by green sustainable development for the cities. I talk about the sustainability. I'm talking about the biodiversity, about the environment, about life, and about giving good life to the coming generations. So all of this, we need to work on green technology. We need to work on sustainable development, not just focus on development, but sustainable development. When this becomes the core, we are going to come up with cities which are greener and which are futuristic. So the green is the buzzword, and if we don't function, and we have to take measures from now. If we don't work in the direction from now, it is literally going to take decades together to, so that for it to become the norm of the day. And we have to bring mass awareness in this direction, mass awareness among the public, mass awareness among all the authorities and all the decision makers, because if it is not done now, we are going to have a lot of losses in the next 20. We've already seen how badly the climate change is affecting the kind of heat waves that the cities are facing. Bangalore and Hyderabad was somewhere between 20 to 30 degrees. Now we are touching 40 degrees. These have to be controlled. We have to take actions in this direction.
Yes, Pallavi, you have talked about the challenges which we are facing as of now. If we don't deal with our the scientific approach and the visionary model, we may end up in what you are saying, the consequences. But can we look at the current cities around the world just to get a little bit of insight how they have actually went on a planning? There are some projects already been initiated. There are some good examples. There are some organizations which give ease of living. There is an overall index of considering how a city should be constructed for, or you can say not necessarily a city, but also a major region, which can be considered as a town or a city. So some of the countries like Nordic countries and Australia, they were appreciated and they were listed among the top 20 in the cities like Melbourne, Sydney, and also in Finland. There are some country, Sweden. There are some cities. Norway also, one or two cities they have mentioned. Canada is one example. They have Ottawa and other cities. So I think, of course, there are certain approach we have to look at how they have planned in terms of overall urban planning, while they have designed, so there are architects and structural engineers and resource planners, and then there is a development authority who's looking after the overall population and all. And there are one hand there is a regulatory agency. So when we look at these practical aspects in terms of various stakeholders, there are some projects planned, like such as smart cities, taking care of all these stakeholders and have a comprehensive plan. So then we have heard of cities which are like business hubs, which are mainly focused on. Some are focused on technology. Some are focused on the unique takeaway. Like some of them focus on tourism, like in Paris, this city is completely oriented itself towards tourism. Is one example. If you consider Silicon Valley, it is one example. You say it is a city of entrepreneurs, and it is actually designed completely towards entrepreneurs. Similarly, if you consider uh, you know uh, uh, Hyderabad and Bangalore, they are considered as IT cities. So there are many ideas of what people are having, what a city should be. But as you rightly said, we should have a right approach in terms of what we want. So therefore, the dialogue of future of living, some components you touched upon, that green thinking and having a quality of life in terms of access to basic amenities and so forth. We can go in details. So can you talk about what is your view on smart cities? The current government of India, they have planned for 100 smart cities in the next 20-25 years. Uh, without going into the the merits and demerits of the project, I would request you to think about the whole idea of smart cities. Do you think that fits into the very much the future of living in cities? Can it take care of all the contours and elements of people who want to have a quality of life, or do you think it's more tech driven?
See, I think it is not tech driven, but at least they are reducing the pressure of on the few metropolitan cities. So when we are coming up with such clusters, we are reducing the pressure on that particular city, and we are planning, we are distributing population around. So we might be able to give them all the amenities. We might be able to give them the smartest and automated good technologies, and with the best of the best amenities. There are many things like they are exclusive bicycle riding or exclusive walking tracks and all of this. But there's one aspect that they need to realize. So as long as they are building such cities, they need to ensure that they are using renewable energies, like especially solar panels is trending now, and that's where the energy is trapped and used in at one location, and the energy has to be used in the produced and consumed in the same location. That way, the grid planning there's not going to be pressure on the grid planning in the urban planning vicinity. And by having such clusters, we can also encourage biodiversity. We can have biophilic designs, and that's what the governments are also encouraging nowadays. The biophilic design, though it is an expensive thing, but by doing so, we are going to attract the lost flora and fauna that we have that we can bring back. And it might not be a larger extent, but at least to a certain extent. And the government should also when doing these things, they have to arrange for afforestations. Like of course, when development happens, that means we are chopping off a lot of trees. But when they can give orders to the builder communities to not chop off the trees, but at least the tree replacement technology has to set in a big way in our country, because this technology is going to help not to cut out the roots and the trees, but we can always replace, transport the trees in that particular location to another feasible, suitable location. That ways we are not losing on the trees which were on the particular surface for decades together. And solar is one thing, and EV stations. EV is going to be a very good, very important role in our coming days when we talk about green and sustainable living. EV should have come to our country a long back, but we need to take up more aggressive pressures in this direction. And recently, the government of Telangana has also given us given a geo stating that at least 25% of the parking has to be occupied for EV charging stations. So that is a good move, and we have to head more towards in this direction, having so that all the builder communities also have EV charging locations, and it is an encouragement for them to buy electric vehicles and use it. These are some of the changes that is happening currently, but these are all small changes. We need a massive green revolution. It has to have a very it has to become the norm, and everybody should talk in terms of green, like I told, the buzzword. And when we talk about other cities, like there's one urban forest town which is being developed in cities like Singapore. Though it's being a tropical city, they're focusing so much on the green kind of buildings. I think all of us have to replicate that model of building structures as in Singapore. I know it is an expensive thing, but we have to compromise on certain areas to come up with this kind of a living. It is so much so that everything is pushed under the ground, and the greener spaces and fresh air could like the parking and other things has been pushed under the ground, so that they don't have these commotion and other contamination in the air. So this is a good move, and all of us should take strides in this direction.
There are a lot of positive notes. Um, I would like to touch upon some important aspects, that could be to identify what are the biggest obstacles for somebody like some for entrepreneurs or urban planners and administrators. In terms of if you look at air quality, I think more or less the world is moving towards electric vehicles, as you rightly pointed out. So I think it's just a question of planning the right technology and selection of technology and laying down the infrastructure. In perhaps in 10-15 years, we may solve the problem of air quality and in the cities, and also cut down a lot of emissions around the world. And traffic congestion, I think public transportation is something also has a large scale consensus among many of the cities. I think that is the way forward. Uh, and coming to the another important aspect is the green cover you talked about. So the plantations, green cover, there is a massive requirement of space for construction, for residential, both domestic as well as community, and then you need commercial space. Then you need space for, administrative purposes for the government, and then you need space for industrial hubs and tech hubs. All these together coming in a common setup in a one within a city. So there is a definitely is going to be challenge. So can you look at what are the ground realities? Being an entrepreneur or working with government administrators, you identify because you have to also make it realistic and viable for you know your own venture, and at the same time you bring a lot of you know uh, output for the consumer who would like to avail your project and live in your planned venture. And on the other hand, there is challenges, and then you have on the administration whom you have to have a lot of clearances and so on and so forth, meet with the requirements. Then the last one is the resources. So the resources which are obviously has to be shared, and that resources will incur a cost for you. So having considering end to end, how does it affect your projects, and what are the obstacles you see coming up for many world class construction and which are green and livable?
True. I think at least after COVID, I hope everybody has realized whether if someone is sitting in the parliament or someone is sitting on a shed out there, that they need oxygen to survive and they to live on. And but what that's we have to, especially the government, if they and if we have to live, if we have to talk in terms of green technology and green movement and a green future, everybody, not just us or not just the environmentalists or not just the communities, but everybody has to think in that line. And for this, the biggest two obstacles that I see is in our country is the lack of the improper political system that we are running in, and the second one is the lack of innovation. The first one, the political system, see, we have to at least, if not now, but at least for the future and for coming generations and for the nation as a whole, if we don't work, if we don't upgrade ourselves, we are going to have a very a bad, very disastrous future for all of us. So I am thinking there has to be a little tweak in the democracy. We have to reimagine democracy to a certain extent. I mean, this is we have to build. As of now, we know how the political systems are working, especially when it comes to build communities. Like, we have to deal with all the departments. The biggest problem here is the policy making and the policy regulations. There's so much of confusion that we have to within the departments, that it is time taking process, but we can't explain this to the consumers, the end users. This has to be set right from at the departmental level, at the government's level. Of course, we might sound very unfeasible, our government is not going to change, but for the sake of the future, for the sake of our other generations coming up, we have to tune them, we have to tune in that direction. See, I was thinking that if we don't have the proper research and development, which for us to foresee how the future is going to be, for us to understand what are the problems and what are the best things that is going to happen to us in the future, we might not be able to work in that direction. See, our politics or political government people is sitting in the parliament are busy addressing the current issues. They are busy in their own politics. The next level, the jurisdiction, they are busy settling, the past crimes or resolving conflicts. Now, who is the one who's foreseeing it? Who's forcing the future? We need to have a dedicated team or a department to look at the future, to analyze what it is. And for this, I feel there has to be a very strong futuristic research and development team, which has to be led by visionaries. And this there has to be an ecosystem which is going to build an ecosystem wherein the entire nation is going towards the vision of the future, which is being developed by the research and development team. And they now in India, we all know the research and development is the most neglected one. We need to bring that to the mainstream, and they have to tag along with the visionaries to see this kind of a change that we are looking at. So if when we the entire functionality of the nation should be within this ecosystem. The four people, when we talk about the players, importantly the policy makers, or they're the power holders, the responsibility guys, that's the business owners and the other entrepreneurs who are going to make things happen, and the authorities who are going to set formulations, who are going to set policy, regulations, and other formulations for the functionality. So all the power, authority, the accountability, that's the society, and the responsible guys should work in sync. Only if we work in a synchronization can this be resolved. I know it is not going to happen very immediately, but we have to take steps now. So at least in the next decade or so, we can come out of this rut. And when they are functioning, they have to function with the core thing in mind, that they are going to be human-centric and that they are going to give a quality of life for everyone. So that without the compromise of living, everything works around this. Not like how we did earlier, not like economy is in center, economic structure is in center. Here we have the core, the quality of life in the center, and all the other things. And for this to have a good, we're going to have no authorities to have any command, but everybody is only going to work in consensus. If this is going to happen, I think we will be heading in the right direction.
Definitely, I could see some positive development in the past few years. Of course, that is because the kind of crisis that is unfolding is because of that. People are realizing. We have seen in the last decade, like temperature rising and flooding and tsunami and so on and so forth, and large scale, flooding, especially in the areas you've never heard of, that this could be possible. And there is landslides, so many things, of course, climate change effect, as well as there are crises which are unfolding because of the way which we have structured our entire economic engine, whether it is in cities or industrial hubs or overall nations. And the most important aspect of any anywhere you look at the living among any nations and cities, it's a behavior of, or the culture, which is the central pillar of any city, which is, or any great city, you could say. You always hear of that there is some culture of this city. And how do you see that people behavior and culture play a role in the way city is structured? Or if not city, but I'm desisting from the word city because it will become an epicenter where people want to live. So how can we build cities, more cities, not in existing cities alone? How can we build more cities which are future living, we having all the components we talked about, which we can envision, where culture has actually a prominent role? Because you talked about politics, so politicians, obviously their customers are people, so they would like to serve them as much as possible. So they may not listen to entrepreneurs and scientists and engineers or many other people, but when it comes to an ordinary citizen who is having a right for franchise, they would like to address them. So in that context, their behavior and culture is very important for administration to listen. how do you see that culture and behavior will play a significant role? Do you see that a stumbling block right now, or do you see it's an asset, and how it's going to be in the future?
Definitely, it's going to be a stumbling block. Like when we talked about globalization a while ago, we saw how everything was copied from the Western culture. The habits, the lifestyles, everything was copied by them, and that's how we live for a while now. And like we also know that technology is going to take over in coming years, like in a massive range, and nobody can stop technology. And when technology, especially like artificial intelligence and the machine learning, is going to come and in such a massive it's going to have such a massive impact that majority of us will be thrown out of our jobs. And then what? I mean, when we all this while your your dwellings was around economic activities and your jobs and other things. If you don't have a job, then what? So many of them, I mean, I think so there's going to be a shift. We are going to this the cycle is going to repeat, wherein people from rural will have to, I know, people will be migrating back to rural areas because I think technology is going to take over to that extent. People have to think of alternative job opportunities. They have to think of indigenous works, like it could be arty crafts or artisans, and all of those things are going to revive, is what I feel. When if this kind of revival happens, we are going to look at like how India was in earlier days, when around the cotton business, we had all the cotton manufacturers, cotton merchants in one community, and the other artisans in one community. I somehow see this indigenous way of living coming back.
Yes, yes, culture and also tradition and also the behavioral aspects are prime importance. And when it comes to culture, I mean, you know, the whole idea of people making a choice is actually becomes a behavior. So an entrepreneur plays a very significant role what you would have to offer for people to make a choice, you know. So that is a very powerful tool you have, that you can drive the people's choice. So if you have actually choice to build what you have to offer to the people, in the larger context, what is that? I mean, can you talk about a little bit about your ongoing initiatives or projects which you think what people can look up to, and that is something you are also building for the future?
Right. Like as of now, again, all of us are taking baby steps towards a greener future and a sustainable future. So now we've, with lots of consciousness, we have decided to come up with these biophilic designs. We, as an organization, are trying to go paperless. Again, solar panels is something which we have sticked upon, so that we tap solar energy and consume it in the communities itself. And the waste management systems we have, of course, Hyderabad government has come up with certain solutions for waste management. We were among the first ones to implement it in our communities, and yeah, that's about it.
And would you also
And
like to,
again,
sorry,
the EV charging stations, we've considered that on our sites.
and do you also take into consideration of the energy neutral aspects, like the lighting and ventilation of air? Like you have to so that you could have a minimal air conditioning requirement to have a cooling and heating, the heat transfer happens very naturally, and there are many aspects in terms of technical terms. And so, as you said, glass is one aspect where so the various components of the building. Are you taking the architecture and structural design and the selection of the material into account
That's
also?
Yes, that's where the biophilic designs play a very key role. Biophilic designs is going to act like a wall around the building, the green wall around the building, wherein the heat, it acts as an obstruction for the heat, wherein because of which the temperatures in that urban space vicinity is going to at least reduce by 2 to 3 degrees, and that's a very good move. And again, with not it is going to help the greenery around you is going to help improve your mental health. It's going to reduce the kind of stress, and it is also going to attract flora and fauna, or to a certain extent, but at least you are not bland like how you were earlier, but some kind of a greenery is going to add more life and positivity in your living.
For the benefit of audience who would like to know, can you a little bit elaborate about, like, for the somebody, a layman, what is a biophilic design is actually the basic context components of it?
Right. So earlier we were always sticking to landscapes as a only green factor in the communities. Now, with the architecture, what we are able to do is we are able to get trees and other plantations on your building. So even somebody living on the 10th floor or the 20th floor have access to a garden. When he peeps out of the window, he didn't look down for his greenery. It's just right through his window in his balconies. I mean, can you imagine having trees on your balconies? It is going to give that feel that you are in your private garden space, and just kind of a green filling around the building, so that you don't have to always you don't have to have the regret that I'm not on the ground and I'm missing on the greenery. Needn't be there, because like we know, the city is going to city is going to require demand so much of land spaces. We'll only have to go upwards, and when we go upwards, we are also taking greenery to them. That is biophilic designs.
That's really great, and congratulations to you. That one important aspect you are bringing back to the people is the green cover you are bringing back. So that's a major accomplishment for you. Congratulations. And various other components you did mention. I see there's one important element which we can think of, like in sustainability, is the self-sufficiency. The reason why many of the cities are actually overburdened with with the capacity, you could say, with the lack of resources or excessive populations or too much of overshooting the requirement. There is of course a mismatch of the demand, you can say. That's a common terminology. So in terms of planning and executing, self-sufficiency is going to be the core, because if every community and building is self-sufficient, there is always a sustainability in terms of meeting the requirements and demands and infrastructure. In that context, we can envision at least ease of living, if not we envision a great living for generations. At least we can say we can have a trouble-free cities where basic necessities like water, electricity, fresh air, and having a green cover, and also having a very easy infrastructure of pedestrian or whatever. So can do you think can we incorporate planning of self-sufficiency, like giving an example like energy? So if you go for solar energy for power consumption, can it be a self-sufficient self-sufficiency for the community or a building, or do you have to depend on the from the supply from the power distribution company? Even same example for going to the heating. Can we use solar thermal for instead of going for electric heaters, and for cooking also? So what do you see there?
True. The problem here is we've become so comfortable with all those facilities. We don't want to adjust. We don't want to compromise. I mean, life has become so easy for us. And if you tell anybody to adjust a
Lazy or
little,
easy? I
and
don't know. Sorry to interrupt.
both actually, life has become so comfortable now, and if we have to ask people to go back to certain old methods, that is the biggest obstruction. Otherwise, I see it is possible. I mean, it comes at an additional cost, but if that becomes the norm of the day, and if that is the only option, I think everybody will have to stick to it. And of course, we know solar energy has so much of capability. We have to still tap it and use greater energies to tap it better. And of course, wind energy is playing a very good role over here. So we have to be. I mean, it has to become like a rule. The government has to set standards and rules and tell them only renewable energy, no other energy, and then we have no options, and then we'll tend to stick to it. So I think this way we can do it. Otherwise, giving options would never work. Yes, like I told you, the cost factor can always be can also always become affordable if we have large amount of research and development happening in this area to look out for better alternative solutions.
I'm sure a lot of technologies and also engineering aspects will come in for making choices for entrepreneurs to adopt this. But I'm sure we can find solutions to build resource neutral and energy neutral and so on and so forth for communities. How do you see water? Because it's very important for construction and as well as for people who are living in that community which you have constructed. How do you going to incorporate? Because water is something is actually not just it is not harnessed directly. It is not. It is actually coming from either from rain fed or from rivers. So do you think the construction communities can harvest the water, or do you think it's not enough?
Yeah, of late we've got the geo stating that you have to rainwater harvesting as a mandatory thing. But rainwater harvesting, yes, for that community, because it's a geo and because it is important, we are doing, but that is definitely not sufficient. We have to also use the waters that has been used in the swimming pools and retreat it, and you have to reuse it. Water is definitely a resource that we have to take care of and limit its consumption. Retreating and using the waters again and again, especially for landscapes or gardenings, is one solution. But this is a very small step towards it. It's a very small step. It is not sufficient.
But if everybody takes the aspect of water harvesting in their planning in the construction, it's going to help.
To a certain extent, see, if it is in a builder community or in a bigger space, it is available. I mean, the rainwater harvesting itself takes a certain amount of area. If you have to ask the same thing for the independent houses or other communities where there's no space, so it is not a feasible idea. I mean, it doesn't work that way.
So it's actually great to hear about what you are doing, and I think it's a beginning that the kind of project you talked about, biophilic design and so on and so forth. And could you, uh, uh, talk about how this the other entrepreneurs like you are aspiring entrepreneurs or people who are in the construction area, anybody from an architect or a planner or any engineering company who is into construction, do you see this as really an attractive venture, or do you think still it is a question of cost? Do you think the administration has done enough for incentivizing the entrepreneurs and developers coming up with these kind of projects, or is it still a cost to the entrepreneur and organization? Because in that case, you have to transfer this cost to the consumer. So for how do you see this? If more people have to take up the projects like what you are doing, is it an attractive one or still it's a burden one?
See, for the builders, it's not a difficult task. We have all the best of the architects in place for all the accessible to all the builders. But the problem is how the consumers receive it. Here, the cost has become a big problem. I mean, for us to come up with that kind of a vertical forest is going to cost a bomb. But are the customers willing to pay so much and take it from you? Is the question. When there is no demand, there is when there's no demand, there's no point in having such structures. So that is where the gap is. I mean, how do we meet the gap that the affordability factor has to decide?
I understand affordability is the most important aspect. That's where planning and technology can play a role in what how much to extent it can cut cost, and because if you are efficient in your entire resources and structure and everything, I mean, so I'm not an entrepreneur in this area, but that's the reason why I'm raising this point for startups or tech entrepreneurs. How do you like if they can come up with some solutions which can for an entrepreneur to adopt and bring down the costs, because this is the most important premise for any transformation, any if you are coming up with any project or transition, is how easy for people to adopt, and also how affordabilities. That can be the faster the transition. So, uh, so envisioning like for the future, with an open idea, how do you see the future cities, and how do you would like to envision from the point now you have already you're doing? How do you see that that the future cities which will, because we need a lot of cities in the country, and also there will be many nations which will come up with, because there are hardly any cities now which are meeting the meeting space for living. So definitely we need more cities and entrepreneurs like you to build more cities. So in that context, it is very important to envision for future of living and how the cities would be. What is your idea of future city should be?
My city, I mean, my vision is definitely a smart and a green city. There's no compromise in this word green, because if there is no green and sustainability, there is no point of making building cities which are just going to, die off in the next 20, 30 years. We need to have, cities or built for at least, like we spoke in the past, at least for, 100 years. A minimum planning of 100 years is something which we should look at. Otherwise, so much of investment, so much of the material investment, the resources that we're using in the kind of construction shouldn't be going for a toss. And definitely green biophilic thing. And for this, we need a lot of support from the government, encouragement from the government to come up with these cities. And we have to artificially create the demand and tell them that this is the way it is going to be, so that everybody, it sinks into everybody's minds. And we're going to have green structures, tall structures everywhere. And again, the like you mentioned, the 100 smart cities we're going to come up with, like you rightly mentioned, it has to be self-sufficient and sustainable. So this way is everybody, it is going to be an equitable kind of a life for everyone. I wish and hope everybody has a very happy, bright, green future.
I think we are almost coming to the end of our conversation. So before we close this wonderful interaction, is there something would you like to, request or appeal to? What is that your expectation from the administrators and the policymakers? And also, what is that you would like to, kind of pass a message to budding entrepreneurs and consumers for each of them, one each?
I have a big request to the policy makers. The request is like,
One or
please
two
come up
points.
with, come up with right policies which is going to be, which is going to help us in terms of the futuristic vision that we have. And when you are giving these policies and when you're giving us those permissions, please hurry up. Don't waste our precious time. That's for them and for the budding entrepreneurs and other guys who are looking to spread out in this area. I think the systems, and especially in Hyderabad, we've seen a lot of improvements happening. It's the government, the procedures are becoming simpler. It is not as hectic as it was in earlier. So I think we all can dare to. I mean, the biggest problem is they used to get worried about dealing with the governments and the departments out there. It is easing out, and I think it is time that you take that risk and set in. It is going to be a little smoother than you thought it would be. So it should be a good play for all of us.
Yeah, I hope the administrators are listening that they would like to have a time-bound clearances and also some incentives for entrepreneurs and infrastructure companies. And it's a very good news for young budding entrepreneurs and also technocrats that there is a lot of opportunity in this area, in the clean technology, green area, and sustainability, and green building and future cities. So that is definitely a great news for people to take up many careers or ventures in this area, because construction is something, engineering, and in the construction area is not, we have not seen much. I think smart cities and the future cities are going to offer a lot for aspiring professionals and entrepreneurs in this area. And finally, the great living, the future of living I think it's a good news for people that here is going to come a quality living, and it's a great news. So thank you for everyone. Thank you, Pallavi, Ms. Pallavi, for having accepted the interaction, and we wish you all the best. That may you come with more ventures and also come up with large scale plans and townships so that more people can live in your ventures and have a great life.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.